Пані та панове, розпочинаємо засідання 5-ї дискусійної платформи «Успішні жінки, успішні громади» або «Подолання жінками перешкод та суспільних викликів у місцевих громадах». Представляємо модератора Олексія Riabchina, народного депутата України, члена міжфракційної організації «Рівні можливості», голову підкомітету з питань енергозбереження та енергоефективності Комітету Верховної Ради України з питань паливно-енергетичного комплексу, ядерної політики та ядерної безпеки. А також запрошуємо спікерів та спікерок дискусійної платформи. Hennadii Zubko, віце-прем'єр-міністр, міністр регіонального розвитку, будівництва та ЖКГ України. Debra Button, громадська лідерка, колишня мер міста Вейбурна, Канада та президентка Асоціації міських муніципалітетів провінції Saskatchewan. Diane Bunyan, гендерна експертка Ради Європи, колишня депутатка міської ради міста Брістоль, Великобританія, директорка консалтингової компанії Gender Equality
Bristol, head of the consulting group Gender Equality Mainstream in member of the Kramatorsk City Council, head of the Higher Council of Ukrainian through the Successful Women of Ukraine, head of the Verkhovna Village Council of the Debra Council, Executive CEO of the Civic Influence Group. Oleksii, you have the floor. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. It's a great honor to lead and moderate this panel on the first female forum. Like in the previous moderator, I've never prepared to any previous engagement like this, but for me this is a very honorable mission, and let us begin with the video that we have. We also have additional ones from Mr. Vice Prime Minister, so let's begin from the video and then we'll discuss our panel. The bigger is the territorial community, the harder it is for a woman to lead it. In the European Union, the situation is very uneven. From 31% female mayors in Sweden to no female mayors in Cyprus. On average in the European Union, there are 12% female mayors. The creation of amalgamated territorial communities, which is actively undergoing in Ukraine, does not ease access to local authorities to women. In every region of Ukraine, the amount of women chosen by heads of local communities is not bigger than women. In 5 regions there are no women elected, only 3 regions show approximate gender equality. The decentralization reform has reduced the amount of women leaders in local authorities in the countryside. Only each 5th head of a village community is a woman. During the reform of decentralization, Ukraine should increase the support of women who want to play a more important role in amalgamated territorial communities. This is the sad statistic that we see. The reform of decentralization has been called one of the most successful in Ukraine. But we see that according to the main topic of this forum, it is not as successful as we think. Please, Mr. Prime Minister, why is such a successful reform, which is recognized by the international community, does not allow women take up the role that they would maybe. Women don't go into politics believing there will be more resources and more responsibility, but maybe people don't elect women who go there. Maybe men with resources decide that these resources are theirs and only theirs. Please tell us what you think and what can we do to improve the situation. First of all, I would like to say that it was always my dream to speak at the first Women's Congress. You know, it's like Diane, our child, always dreamt to be there, and this is one of those opportunities where we can give additional information which is required, not just talking about gender equality, but about the opportunities, about this window of opportunity which is being open today for our women. And you know, I believe that every speaker who was present on this panel, they thanked women for being involved, taking up the responsibility, to say that you are kindly annoying and thus motivating men to do this. And I also remember the words of my wife every time when she says, well, how are the reforms? When will we implement this deal, and when will be in Europe? And this motivates. And you know, the other words I always remember is Margaret Thatcher, who said, if you want to talk, come to a man. If you want to do something, come to a woman. These are the things that really motivate us today to talk about what we really need to do in Ukraine. I wouldn't look on just raw statistics, 12% males in Europe or 19% in Ukraine. For territorial community heads, female heads, I'd like to say about this window of opportunity. Ukraine goes through a complicated time, military aggression, stabilization and renewal of economy. Very complicated times for reforms, and these reforms are very hard to orient around what has to be done to understand this, but this is a window of opportunity, and in this window of opportunity I see directly that Ukraine has to strengthen itself, not just on a higher political level, whereas are among the bottom of the list. And I see right now when a representative of the President of Ukraine is a woman, two vice speakers in the parliament are women, an ombudsman to the rights of people with limited capabilities. I see these female experts and reformers who work together with me, and I'd like to ask, what does the presence of women in the government give for the economy? The McKinsey statistics says that a great percent of GDP is added by presence of gender balance in government. Britain shows great income due to presence of women in the government. And what are we doing today for this window of opportunity to be open at the same time, so that we couldn't say that men have to share something? We're talking about that we have to involve the best qualities today of women who go into government, to direct them not just towards governance but to provide quality in Ukrainian families. I'd like to show a brief video on how we conduct the competition in the ministry to new reforming positions, where we involve the experts and reformers, and the results we received after the first stage of this competition. This shows just a little bit of simple statistics where experts, reformers, managers of female gender come to our ministry and have the opportunity to influence the forming of the state policy. And 80% of people in my ministry are women. This is important for me because I have the opportunity to use the expert opinions of professional people. What I would like also to add is very important for us What does this decentralization reform allows us? What they say about obligations, finances, responsibility, this is important, but you have to notice an important thing. Decentralization of leadership is what's happening. After the vertical of power was spread everywhere and determined what has to do everything, now we have an opportunity, after creating these communities, decentralize the leadership positions, which also some headed by a woman. Well, once during my child I was playing hockey, I was taking part in a tournament, and after one of the games I had a fever, I was at home, and my mother said, well, I'm losing, you're losing your health, mother, and I said, I want to win. And she told me, remember, it's the male role to compete, and the female role is to preserve the next generation. And we have this value to be transferred to the level of governance in the state. And it's very important that the decentralization of authority, the heads of the communities and the MPs and the members who are elected into local councils, they had this value of preserving the future generations through implementing a new quality of education, healthcare, social service, administrative services, and I'm convinced that this is where women lead. They become finances, secretaries, where women become in government. There they have the highest quality of services. I'm going to give you a couple examples. I could remember Mr. Medvedev here, who was one of those who went to these elections, took upon herself the responsibility. I saw the results in this community. I could remember Ms. Hennadii, who is the right 8 women, or heads of the amalgamated communities who have taken up this responsibility. But there are some great examples where in the segregated amalgamated community, and the 14 members present there, only 11 of them are women, who are now implement projects directly in this community, have shown the best success in energy efficiency and infrastructure projects, educational projects, 23 projects which were implemented during the creation of this community. This is the result which we see when real managers, talented, responsible women take control, take responsibility, and support for us. But there's enough opportunity not to be in the election code, not in just in the opportunities. We're talking about how to give additional opportunities during management. I'd like to say that today I'm always asked, are our women ready to take responsibility? I say yes, they are. Are they ready to go into government? I say yes, they are. The only thing we need is to build this parity, this equality. We will understand that the best values of a person, the best qualities of a person are directed in this managerial direction, could give the most use to the community. I'd like to show another slide. What is the goal of conducting reforms currently before us? Men and women in the government, what is the main goal of the reform today, and what is it directed towards? When we previously determined social and economic development, the amount of social objects, kindergarten, schools, medical institutions, it was very statistically correct. But how this influences the index of development of human potential, how today is the school open and infrastructural object, a hospital influence the quality to children which are brought up in an Ukrainian family, and how they can self-actualize. And we're talking about how to hold the youth. We have to create service, we have to create this potential, but you can also hold the youth with one simple thing, by giving them an opportunity how to enter the government. Local authorities, first of all, then maybe on regional level, the parliament and other levels. And decentralization of leadership, we believe this is a wonderful opportunity to involve youth into government, including our women, and it's important for us not to see just the dry statistics. I'd show you another video. This is among the heads of local amalgamated communities, which part are women, women managers. What I want you to turn your attention to, let us not look at the amount of our managers, female managers who work as head of local communities, but the amount of projects that these female managers implement. This is important because the quality of implementation of this project, this is the future, because when a community comes to a decision, when it looks at a perspective and strategies of development, they evaluate first of all the quality of those projects, those services that can be implemented directly in the community. And that's why I would like today for everyone present to note that decentralization of leadership of opportunity is also the decentralization of gender parity, which may happen in every community. And for myself, I would also like to thank personally for the first female congress for us. This is very important because in 2012, Olena Kondratyuk was also present there. In the parliament was created a group which began doing this, and for me, this was not quite clear what is the main direction which will be realized in this policy of support. But when we see such a powerful team which is working in the parliament, this is what today allows us to talk about success of those projects which are now being realized in communities. So that's why thank you very much. So, and I'm ready to take part in the second Women's Congress. Thank you very much, Mr. Hennadii. Two blitz questions for you. We are fighting for an energy efficient Ukraine for 4 years, and it's the first time when we talk about here on this forum. I have a question. Just like in the energy sector, in the energy efficiency, it's very important to measure data because a simple counters may show where you have problems and reduce consumption. If you know what the problem is right now, we have two statistical data, one video with one numbers, counted with Europe, corrected the data, interpreted it in another way. Could you please say that this data about the role of women in decentralization, how many heads we have, how many MPs, are they only operated by the minister or the entire ministry, and what are the conclusions from that? Is it only just in the forum, but what is being done with them? And the second question is, I believe that there are, and also people see us on the Rada TV channel and many other women leaders in territorial communities. What is the example of energy project in cities you may mention which was realized so that it would be either a typical example or it could be realized almost every? Could you please in the Blitz format? It's hard to say those Blitz questions, but I would like to mention that really we can turn everything into numbers.
Transparency matters. Decentralization.eu, that's our portal. You're welcome to come and check it out. You will see updates on communities and projects and who's in charge of communities, how many MPs of either gender you get there, and what they do. Going back to Margaret Thatcher, If you want to talk Czech with a man,
Можу
you wanna
привести
get it done
простий
Czech
приклад
with a
ОСББ.
woman.
В місті
Speaking of the condominiums in
Ільницька,
Kiev,
яка впроваджувала цей проект,
Ms.
яка за
did
рахунок
this project, and
модернізації будинку, за рахунок
by
встановлення лічильників,
upgrading apartment blocks, installing meters, she saved 400,000 hryvnia in one heating season for the residents.
по спеціальності.
I'll get a background in that. Well, she has a background in that. She's a leader in that condo, and maybe that practice will be replicated across the whole city of Kiev. It might have been a little thing, but we've got a lot of these things coming up. They practice energy efficiency in the municipal sector in those communities, and every manager and leader of the territorial community would like to save funds in order to invest it in something else. So you get lots of examples like that. So you're welcome to go to Minregion.gov.ua or decentralization.gov.ua websites, and let's work together so that many more leaders become a part of this collaboration. Thank you. I have seen a few more hands, and once all the panelists have done talking, we're going to do the Q&A.
Зараз хочу представити другого спікера. Це
On
Дебра
to the
Баттон,
second
громадська
panelist,
лідерка
Debra
колишнього
Button.
міста
She
Вейбурн,
used to
Канада,
be the
та
Weyburn
президент
City Mayor in
Асоціації
Canada. She runs the Association of Municipal Communities
Коли
in
я готувався і
Saskatchewan.
читав ваше інтерв'ю,
When I read your interview,
коли я готувався і читав ваше інтерв'ю, я бачив ваше висловлення
I
про
could
те, що
see
ви
that
підкреслюєте важливе значення підтримки
it is
чоловіка
important
в
to
успішній роботі
gain
жінки.
men's support
І ви
in
радите
women's
жінкам, які
endeavors,
хочуть
and
присвятити себе
you
політиці,
say that if
заручитися
women would like to do
підтримкою
politics,
чоловіка,
they
родини
should
чи
gain
друзів.
support from
Чому
their
для
men,
жінки так
friends,
важлива
families. Why is
підтримка
that so
її родини
important
в
for the
політиці?
woman to gain
І
that
взагалі,
family support in
вибір
politics?
між
And
політикою та
when
родиною
it comes
в
to
Україні,
choosing
я
between
думаю,
politics and
так само,
family
як і
in
в
the
Канаді, є
Ukraine,
дуже
just like in
великою
Canada,
проблематикою, про
is a
яку
big
ми хочемо
deal
поговорити.
and a big problem, perhaps.
I'm going to be talking English. My Ukrainian is not so good.
Я буду говорити англійською, бо по-українськи буде не так
I
гарно.
want to say it will be better next time, but sadly, I know it won't be. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me. It is a real pleasure to be here with you today, and quite frankly, my pleasure is in seeing how beautiful your country is. But I want to say, what is second to the beauty of your country is the beauty, or actually, I'm not sure which is first, the beauty of your women. You have the most beautiful women in all of the world, and you are smart women. And I always enjoy coming and seeing that and enjoying that. I want to tell you it was an honor to be elected to Weyburn City Council 2
Але
times
в
as a
міську
city
раду 2 рази.
councillor and 3 times
І
as
3 рази
their
мене
mayor.
обирали як мера города, міста. Але я хочу сказати
When I talk about my time in politics, because you see, friends, without him, I couldn't have been so involved in our
що я не
community.
змогла б так багато
But
зробити
he was
для
accidentally responsible for me running as well. You see, he was going to run, but people said I should be the one to put my name on that ballot. But ever the supportive wife, I said, no, Greg should run. He would be great. But several people suggested it, and the idea stuck. And guess what? I think I was pretty great too. I spent my Sundays from April to October that year practicing my public speaking in an auditorium of a senior's home while my then 2-year-old son Riley ran wild around me. But that time and effort paid off because in that first election, there were 11 people running for 6 seats, and I topped those polls. It was an amazing feeling to know that my community believed in me and believed what I could bring to them. Local leadership has a big impact on people's lives, covering all kinds of responsibilities that make our cities and towns good places to live with a great quality of life. And local government can't help but be close to its people. You spend your days right there in your communities, not going off to some capital city. To make sure we are representing our people well, though, we need to make sure that we have different voices around the table. The more experiences that are there, the more ideas that come forward, the higher the chances of building successful cities. women's voices are particularly important. We are half the population, after all, aren't we? But also because women make women make great leaders, and I did too. We're just different kinds of leaders than men. Won't you agree? Women are sometimes portrayed as weak or too emotional. Men often say that we're soft, and that softness is better suited to staying at home and raising our children. But our maternal skills and our maternal instincts are actually quite good in politics as well. You see, generally, women come to political leadership not because they want power. That's not the reason. It's because they want to help their communities. Women are taught. We are taught by people around us and by our experiences to understand others, especially their emotions. And we work cooperatively, listening to other ideas, rather than assuming that our own ideas are the best. So, friends, if we're naturally good at leading, why are there so few women in politics? We've had the chance to be involved for years, but our male politicians still outnumber us female counterparts by about 3 to 1. In some ways, hear me out, in some, the system is rigged against us. Men have been getting the education and the work experience that leads to political involvement for much longer than women have. Then once they are in office, as incumbents, they get more money for their campaigns, have better name recognition, and are more likely to win than a newcomer. In Canada, our electoral system favors those people who already hold office, except for me in the last election, darn it. Let's also not forget that the culture was made by men, and women often feel unwelcome, and quite often that's intentionally made to feel that way. So after so many years of pushing for gender equality, many women feel that we've made enough progress and that equality has been achieved. And as much as I love making sure that my glasses and shoes match my outfit, none of my male counterparts faced as many comments about the way they dressed as I did. Women are held to a higher standard, judged for not being at home with our children, for what we wear, for showing emotion, for any number of things that don't get a comment when a man does it. Sometimes it can feel like we need to be twice as good to get half as far. To gain gender equality, we cannot assume that everyone needs the same support or tools. Women need more support at home to make the time to be leaders, because they do carry the bulk of the work at home. You got me here, right, ladies? Cooking, cleaning, childcare, it goes on and on. Often, when we think of that support, we think about the women in our lives. But I'm here to tell you firsthand that supportive men are vital to gender equality. My husband, Greg, is more than just my biggest cheerleader. He took on so much work at home while I was the Mayor of Weyburn, and then later when I was elected President of the Saskatchewan, which is the best province in Canada. The Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association. Encouraging men's involvement at home benefits everyone. It can give a sense of purpose, help men to integrate into a community, and most important, give those deeper connections at home. I mentioned that several people suggested that I run for council before I decided I should. Women are more likely to run for office after they've been asked or approached, and it usually takes up to 7 times before she actually runs. I also made history because I was asked to run for another elected office. In Saskatchewan, we have a group that represents 440 cities, towns, and villages called the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association. Several other mayors suggested that I run for president of Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities in 2002. And in 2013, I was elected their first female president. I used my voice, both as mayor and as president, to encourage women and girls to get into politics, to become the leaders that Canada and the world truly needs. Sharing successes can change women's minds about the process, dispel that anxiety, and inspire them to take that leap into politics. I admit that the movement forward can be slow, and it may stall, and damn it, sometimes it moves backwards. Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association has been around for 113 years. Friends, I am the only woman who has ever held the post as president. I'm sad to tell you today that the president of the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities, again, is a man, as is Weyburn's mayor, as is, in fact, all of Weyburn Council. In the last election in 2016, all 3 women were elected off of council. Now, I don't tell you this to be discouraging, but to remind you how important it is to keep pushing forward and to set goals for women's participation. Friends, we can never take our foot off the gas. For local government in Canada, women make up 26% of elected officials, and studies have shown that women are just as likely to run for politics. When they run, they'll win. They just aren't running. But that's why we're here today, to encourage women to see themselves in that political process, to remind you that it can be done and it should be done. Women make fantastic leaders. Many governments call the place that they meet the house. So let us all remember that a woman's place is not only in her own homes, but in those houses too. Thank you so much for having me here today. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Пані Дебра, я дуже вам дякую за таку промову. Дійсно, як і для чоловіків,
For both men and women in politics, family support really matters.
від цієї підтримки дуже часто залежить доля громади, регіону або навіть країни. Це дуже важлива тематика. Дякую, що ви її присвятили
Or even the entire country, so thank you very much for focusing on that. I was looking across the audience, everybody put their cell phones aside, they were listening, they were nodding their heads when you were saying that, so appreciate it. So with this, on to the next panelist, Diane Bunyan, gender expert of the Council of Europe, ex-deputy of the local council of Bristol in the UK. She runs the counseling company Gender Equality Mainstream. I'm a co-chair of the friendship group with the UK, just as Svetlana Onyshuk. So the gender quota works with us. Every week we get British MPs coming to us, and to us in the Ukraine,
таке розуміння, і вже пан віце-прем'єр-міністр згадував, жіноче лідерство на найвищому рівні у Великобританії у найскладніші часи. Маргарет Тетчер, зараз Тереза Мей, ми розуміємо питання Брекситу, яке дуже неоднозначне, дуже болісне. Скажіть, будь ласка, з жіночим лідерством на регіональному рівні, які приклади, що ви можете сказати про це?
Much. Thank you, Chair. And can I take the opportunity to thank you very much for the invitation to come. It's an honor to be present at the first Women's Congress in Ukraine. And a great pleasure for me to see the progress that you've made over the time that I've been engaged in the study of women's political participation in the Eastern Partnership countries. I think you've made great strides in Ukraine, and it's all tribute to your MPs, particularly your women MPs, I have to say, and also to all of you who continue to push and continue to argue and continue to demand change. In answer to the question, my experience in Bristol is probably very similar to the experience we've just heard about from Canada. I was the first ever woman leader in my city, and my city has existed for 600 years. Quite an ancient city in the UK. We have a population of We have a population of 428,000. We are one of the biggest cities in the UK. And on the outside, it's a very prosperous city. However, it's very divided. It has areas of great wealth, but also some areas which are in the most deprived 10% of areas in the UK. So it's very divided, a very unequal city. Some time ago, we looked at the figures, and the number of women elected locally had fallen, and then it had stayed the same. And as I say, as someone who was elected to the City Council for 12 years, this is an issue which is very close to my heart. So we organised a group of women together to say, how could we make things different? How could we make a change? And we agreed that women's equality needed to be higher up the political agenda. We formed a community association called Bristol Women's Voice in order to give women in Bristol a voice in local political activity, but also in all the other issues which were going on in the city. And then we saw an opportunity. We just elected our first elected mayor, and we decided that we would take this opportunity. Being a politician myself, I can say this, politicians like to be the first to do things. So we took to our newly elected mayor the opportunity to be the first UK city to sign the Congress of European Municipalities and Regions Charter for Equality of Women and Men in Local Life. So we said, you can be the first UK city. This is a real boost. And of course he agreed. And what that gave us was an opportunity to sign this charter. The charter covers all aspects of local government: governance, participation, employment, service delivery, procurement, regulation, and so on. It was drafted, including by myself, with women who are elected and also work at executive level in local government. So it's very practical. It's a practical tool. But what it does do is give an opportunity to make a public statement that the city, the organisation which signs the charter, is committed to promoting equality of women and men. And that's a very important political voice. And I must say, sadly, out of the 1,426 signatories to the charter, there are as yet none from the Ukraine. Even although your Association of Ukrainian Cities and the Association of District and Regional Councils are members of the CEMR. So I hope this might be an impetus to you to look at the Charter. So we got our mayor to sign the Charter publicly on International Women's Day, making a public statement in support of women's equality. And we decided that not just the council needed to be involved, but we needed a whole city plan. So we set up a women's commission. And that has high-level women from the council, from all political parties, from health, economic development, both our universities, business, the local newspaper, the BBC, the bus company, police, college, from community organisations, and including representatives of refugee women. So a whole lot of women got together. And one of the most important things we did was we pooled data. We've heard a lot in this Congress about the importance of data. And one of the things we found was by looking at that data across a whole range of different organisations and issues, we were able to identify very clearly what the key priorities for us were in the city and where we needed to direct our action. We were helped in this by the fact that the Charter has an observatory which includes some suggested indicators, and that's available online to everyone. In order to deliver the actions, the Commission has formed task groups, and they've identified key actions and the way to do it. And those task groups include women across the city. In fact, one of their terms of reference is that they must have women from different parts of the city on them. And we have a health and economy, a power, safety, education and business task groups. And they have identified key priorities, and we've produced what we call a WOO manifesto in order to take this forward. So I can give you some examples, but what we've done with the manifesto is we've asked for calls for action. So we've identified a problem, and then we've asked a call for action to various bodies to address those problems. And the organisations have to report publicly once a year on International Women's Day about their progress. And it's remarkable how having to report publicly actually makes people do things. And it's a really useful means of engaging and discussing what could be done better. To admit to failure, but to ask for support in change has been a really powerful way of driving the agenda forward. I just want to give you some examples of what we've managed to do. As I said, our percentage of elected women had gone down. But what we did was we targeted women who are already active in their communities. And by doing that, we managed to raise representation to 43%. And we have a cabinet now of 6 women and 2 men. So men are very much in the minority, and maybe we need to start looking at how to encourage more men. We're already working for the next elections in 2020. One of the things we did, whilst encouraging women to stand, was look at what the barriers were. And one of them was the way in which the council operates. So looking at times of meetings, the way meetings were conducted, the behaviours, all of those things. And we've changed the standing orders, the rules by which the council runs itself in order to address some of those issues. Another thing we've made progress on, our new mayor is very supportive of actions on domestic violence. He experienced it himself as a child and is very open about speaking publicly about how this has affected him. And he's very good at talking particularly to groups of young men about this issue. So we've used that. And we've achieved various things because of that. We have a priority for social housing for victims of abuse, and we've provided training for over 100 employers on how to identify and support victims of abuse, but also how to tackle perpetrators. And this includes training all the local bus drivers who are employed by a private company to identify and support if there are incidents of violence on buses. Through gathering the data on women's employment, we identified particular issues. We've identified the need to encourage more women into careers where they don't normally take places. So we've got an agreement to have specific places on apprenticeships schemes for women in construction and engineering, and a commitment, because one of the main issues holding women back from employment is the very high cost of childcare. Bristol has the highest cost of childcare in the UK, and I read yesterday that the UK has the highest childcare costs in Europe, so we are the highest in Europe, not something I would like to claim. But a commitment to have a nursery on a site where there's going to be a major development has been a real achievement for us. We've looked at an analysis of subjects taken by boys and girls at school, and we're now targeting and encouraging girls at a much earlier age to think about taking science and maths qualifications, because when they get to the point where they're choosing careers, often they haven't got the right qualifications in order to pursue that. We've looked at women's health. We've got training for staff on treating women with female genital mutilation and identifying girls at risk. And we're also looking at mental ill health, particularly amongst young women, which is a major and increasing problem. So much more needs to be done. But the practical method and the support from the Charter, the public commitment, and in particular, the enthusiasm and hard work of women, of politicians, of civil society, and from major institutions is beginning to deliver real benefits for women in Bristol. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Дуже дякуємо за практичні поради про те, які маніфести
Insights like
речі можна робити жінкам у своїх громадах.
women can do inside their communities. And with this, I'd like to turn over to Lily Kislitsina,
Краматорської міської ради,
MP of
голови
Kramatorsk,
Вищої ради
City Hall.
Всеукраїнського
She
клубу
chairs the
успішних жінок
Pan-Ukrainian
жінки
Club of
України.
Successful
Як
Women
сам
called
людина
Women of
з
Ukraine.
Донеччини,
I'm from Donetsk
дуже
region
приємно
myself, and
спілкуватися
it is a pleasure
з
to be
місцевими
able to speak
депутатами
with the
місцевих рад,
local
тому що,
MPs,
відверто
local
кажучи,
council MPs.
вирішилося
A couple of
взагалі, чи
years ago,
проводити
they were
вибори
wondering
на
if it's necessary to
контрольованій
hold
Україні
elections in the
території.
Ukraine-controlled
І,
territories.
наскільки я розумію,
And as far as I can see in the women's movement, you have been
І
taking
зараз
part in that since
прийшли в
2002,
політику
and
перший раз, ви
now
стали
you have
депутатом.
started
Скажіть, будь ласка,
doing politics, you have made an MP. So in
в
your
регіоні, в
region,
якому йде війна,
where
у
you get
місті, в
hostilities
якому є
underway, and
військові,
in your city you
як
get military
жінка при владі
personnel. So
себе почувається? І
how
взагалі,
does it feel
як
to be a woman in
місто,
the government? And
як ви відчуваєте
in
після
your home
воєнної
city, how does it feel
реконструкції?
like after the war?
Дякую за питання.
Thank you.
І хочу, по-перше, подякувати МФО рівні
I'd
можливості.
like to
Хочу
thank the Equal
подякувати всім
Opportunities
міжнародним
Caucus and all of the international institutions,
NDI,
NDI, UN
які
Women,
підтримують
the
цю тему
LSE for
гендерної
supporting
рівності,
gender
які
equality.
сьогодні зробили такий захід, який
They
дуже
have made this
необхідний для
conference possible,
України.
which is
Хочу
needed in the
розповісти,
Ukraine.
як нам там. І
I'd
хочу
like to
сказати
tell
все
you how
добре,
it is
як
for
кажуть в
us, and I'd
Одесі,
like
не
to say
дождитесь.
it's all fine, and I will say in Odessa, yeah,
Хочу
you'll
сказати,
never see that
що
coming.
як жінка, я
I'd
маю
like to say
сьогодні
that as a
вже
woman, I have today more than 20 years of experience in leading positions in business. I am doing activism for many years, and and I see how do these men do politics, and what do I see? We have a crisis in all spheres, in the economy, in the social life, and there's war. And I clearly understand that this crisis is because yesterday Mr. Grossman has said we are 25 years late because Ukraine doesn't provide and doesn't create conditions for women who are today are the potential, this great potential which will lead this country to peace and economic prosperity. I'd like to say, why did I enter politics? Because in 2014, war came to our doorstep, and the most sensitive people to those events which happened in our city were women. In February 2014, we as civil activists went to the men who were ruling our city, our region, with asking what's happening, why do we have Russian flags, and what are we to do? And we kept asking until we started to see barricades, people in military uniforms, and they began shaking the weapons. And what are we to do then? We couldn't do anything, but we had the experience from Crimea, from Georgia, because we went in 2013 as part of our activism, and people in Caucus told me how these projects are being done, and this project came to me to Kramatorsk next year. And having this the bravery to conduct negotiations with the military with people who had arms but didn't have passports, and they will say that they are the Ukrainian army who came to protect us. And this is April. No political statement has been done yet, and women came to conduct these negotiations. And what do you know? We had several tables, and until a military woman appeared with whom we have agreed and with whom we have trusted that these are really Ukrainian military, and then we started to support it, started to prepare them, started to conduct different operations on how to throw leaflets from a helicopter, and then everything began, and they resulted in the fact that they became explosions. I couldn't come back from an international exhibition back home, and schools stopped working, and the most important, my question, why do these people who were MPs, who work in our law enforcement in our city, about thousands of those, why didn't they protect us? Because they live, they are paid by our taxes, and in our city, just like the rest of Ukraine, we pay taxes, and over 50 women we have who pay taxes. I'd like to say that, thank God, our army, supported by volunteers, by women, they made it so our city is not occupied now. It's not occupied now, and then we came back, we had to rebuild the peaceful life. And what do I see? Who comes from the parliament to us? Maria Onova, Gerashchenko, Irina Lutsenko, and other women. I'd like to say, Irina Suslova, we invite men, please come to us. We need to discuss policy, economy, because they're afraid. We create together with international organizations these spaces, and they don't come there. And girls conduct humanitarian aid, and when the question arose whether you should go into politics, there was no question for me. I have things to do. I knew business, and this was a challenge, and women have to go into politics now. And I'd like to say, if it wasn't for the Equal Opportunities Caucus, I wouldn't be in the politics, but this quota of 30% made it so women appeared there, and people from democratic parties appeared there. And how does a woman live there in regional politics? And I would like to say that this law about local council membership, which exists today, does not allow work for does not let a woman work, or a man even to work for their maximum efficiency, with the maximum efficiency. How do we work now? It's on a voluntary basis. I dedicate 50% of my free time to politics, local politics. That's what I thought, at least, but the conditions are so horrible that 50% is not enough. No processes work, and that's because this is Kramatorsk. It's all over the Ukrainian, because we don't have hospitals. Buildings are in poor conditions. And today, on a session, how can a working woman come to a session, listen to the electorate, and I meet with them twice a month, be effective, be efficient, come to conferences, 8 people. And that's what today we need to see. Correctly interpret the law about local council members, and as you've said, there is a decentralization process, because that member of council should have free time and have to be economically protected, so that they can just say that certain elected members say that they just have to fulfill a quota. This should give them the opportunity to express their thought. This is matters. What else would I like to say? Dear women, today's event shows us that we are ready to go into politics, into economy, and make decisions. And all of this depends on us. And don't listen to anybody else who say that politics are dirty, and how can we clean it without entering it. I'd like to say, to turn to many people who I know here, that We're talking today about implementing change in the law on elections to the parliament, and today the 40-60 quota has been approved. But yes, quotas are not a very pretty measure, but without it we can't do this quickly. Let's conduct this from the lowest level. Let's conduct roundtables and support our MPs from the caucus and lobby this 40 to 60 percentage. And I would like to ask that we need statistics. Only when we have statistics we may prove how important it is to spend money on women, because today, men, if you were to look at the budget, they spend it all on themselves. And I would also like to add, dear women, today this is the first Congress. It happens in a very terrible, complicated situation for our country. You are the potential which will allow our country to blossom and to be peaceful. And I'm sure that men will allow us to do this today. Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have to? Yes, I have to be silent, but I believe that everything will turn out fine in the toast. I'd like to give the floor to Svetlana Zbazhova, head of the Verkhovna, a local community of the Debra region. And as far as I know, in your community, you have an almost equal parity of men and women. Women are 42% of council members. Do you have women's solidarity? How does the decision-making process look? Please share your experience. Thank you very much. For me, it is a very great honor to be a member of this gathering, and a great opportunity to thank the organizers for an opportunity to see and hear a women leader. Wonderful motivation to hear, to speak, and to listen, to come into this public space, to exchange experience, to learn from each other for a more effective participation in national processes, in reformation processes, and decision-making processes. Today, the activity and caring that each of us show is very useful because it contributes to the promotion of gender equality in Ukraine. Despite the low representation of women in politics on the national level and also on regional, municipal, and district councils, women traditionally are a majority in village councils. Well, for instance, during the 2015 election in the Dnipropetrovsk region, the council is 82.5% men and 17.5% is women. The Pokrovsky district Rada is 73%, 73.5% is men to 6.5% women. According to the results of the first elections into the community, truly there is an almost equal parity. It's 42% from the total amount of the members is women. Please pay attention to the trend that there are in places where there is more financial opportunities, more resources to create a member's image, where there is less funding and more responsibility before every elector, then there are mostly women elected. Currently, as the latest elections into the local communities have been conducted, they show us a worrying trend of a lowering amount of women's representation in local authorities and also among the heads of amalgamated communities. And according to the results of the 29th October, there were less than 25% women becoming village heads. The decentralization politics have increased authority and resources on location, and this made the representation in elected bodies of local authorities very interesting for men and political parties, which more often promote men as their candidates. And to my opinion, to strengthen the role of women in politics and to promote the mechanism of gender equality, very important is the issue of national policy, particularly quotas in the election law, efforts of the Parliament and Cabinet of Ministers and local authorities of the active position of political parties in support of women female candidates. The other part is the readiness of women themselves to be brave enough to go to elections, and the biggest barrier is the gender stereotypes, lack of role models, lack of support from families, and quite often the lack of opportunities to unite career and family obligations. And I'd like to say that you shouldn't fall prey to stereotypes, thinking that you have become a successful woman, you have special conditions. No, for this you need strength of character, smarts, dedication, responsibility, and the quality of performance of your work. For me, the guarantee of success is the desire and the skill to continuously learn and to improve oneself, to introduce creativity and positivity in your work, to believe in what you do and to do what you believe in, to have enough energy to self-actualize yourself professionally. For a successful woman, gender equality begins in her own family, where there's understanding, comfort, harmony, where everyone correctly performs their role. Members of our council are real local elite who desire to improve the quality of their lives, and despite their huge experience, continuously they improve their own knowledge. And finally, the decentralization reform is a sign of democratization of our country. But if the representation of women on the local level will be continuously decreasing, and on the national level will be just 12%, Ukraine will never become truly democratic. That's why the first Ukrainian Women's Congress has to become this point of countdown of positive change, of promotion of gender equality in Ukraine. If we were to talk about female solidarity, for me this is extremely important, because first of all, this is correctly constructed relationships. This is social unity, which is founded on mutual support. And this female solidarity is not against someone, it is for positive change. And this is a powerful engine of positive changes in a community. Thank you very much, and I also, as a moderator, I'm very thankful for you to leave a little bit of more time for questions and answers. Our last panelist is Tatiana Dornova, the executive head of the several holding influence groups. I know Tatiana personally ever since the Donetsk events, where Tatiana was one of the first who went to the Donetsk Euromaidan and supported these protests which I organized. And I would say that without female leadership we couldn't have such a great pro-Ukrainian movement. We wouldn't see tens of thousands of people in the Donetsk pro-Ukrainian protests. And this is very important. And right now, Tatiana, we have an opportunity to do something wonderful for our favorite city, but we are concerned with issues of internally displaced persons. Me as a I care very much for all displaced persons and their rights. We're talking about more than 500,000 migrants, and what we agree with is the election rights of displaced persons. These very universities, people who are there, educators, students, they are the local community. They influence, they pay taxes, but they can't elect local authorities. And when they come to local council members with their issues, local members say that you are not my electorate. Tatiana, could you please say what is your proposition, how this can be solved? Let us learn about this problem on the highest level. Thank you, Oleksii. I can't contain myself, because every time Oleksii members these pro-Ukrainian protests in Donetsk and says that he organized and Tatiana supported, and I remember how Tatiana were running around to the municipal council and gave about tens of comments to international journalists, which were a lot of them in the city, and they took almost all of my time, and I was the deputy of the coordinator of the coalition of the Patriotic Force out in Basque. In the evening we were sewing flags in the basement. During the day we gave out newspapers, but this cooperation is the most important. And remembering about this today, we shouldn't do it because I see the clock. I mean, remembering Donetsk in the spring 2014. A lot of things changed during this time, and maybe it's important to mention what do women migrants encounter. I don't think this has been mentioned yet, but the difference is in that if we were to compare the statistics of international statistics, then there are an equal amount of men and women among internally displaced persons, but there are more women in Ukraine than men of displaced persons, about 65% among those registered as internally displaced persons are women, and women encounter that besides the general problem of adaptation, integration, she often helps to adapt and integrate to their men and their children, because children in the first stages of displacement require more attention. I remember my first year we lived in Lviv, including the fact that this is a very friendly city which helped us very much on every stage. At the same time, children required additional attention, more attention than usually. I have two boys, and the situation when a woman who is used to, in ordinary conditions, to use the help of her mother or husband, but when migration happens, then families get torn apart, and this tear is very strongly felt, and that's how women start suffering extra pressure because she has to find a job, has to spend time with children. She spends almost all of her time to integrate into the new city, and when we're talking about integration in local communities, and to achieve full integration we need to be felt full citizens of Ukraine, had to have access to all rights, including political rights. And it's the fourth year when and still internally displaced persons lack the right to choose their local representative. This is 4% of citizens. This is a huge electoral resource which is not being accounted for. And all of our studies show that people are really interested in having the opportunity to influence the election of local authorities. We've been living in the new communities for 4 years. We pay taxes, we pay for public services, our children go to local schools, local kindergartens, and we might often, sometimes better than locals, understand local problems, and we react fast, and we notice some things which weren't noticed previously, because we've moved and we have a new and fresh look on things. Even when you throw away trash, even something as small as a ticket for public transport, when you pay taxes, when you pay for other services, we influence the communities when we play. At the same time, we lack the right to influence local authorities. And that's why, together with the Civil Network Opora and the International Foundation of Election Systems, our organization, Influence Groups, has registered a draft law with the help of 24 MPs, the draft law 6240, for providing election rights for internally displaced persons and for other citizens who are mobile inside the country. And I would like to turn your attention to the fact that the internal spokesperson has unlocked these previously hashed down problems, because we are resources for to the communities where we've moved and for the country as a whole, because noticing the problems which internally displaced persons face, you may notice other issues which exist in the society and the government level. The draft law 6240 foresees that every person who lives not where it is registered with the propiska system can change their election address. This is related not just to an internal displaced person, but this is due to a typical system where a woman has been living for 10-20 years in a husband's apartment in another city and can't elect because she can't register there. This related to labor migrants, for instance, who move to big cities to work and once again can't elect members of local councils and mayors. This is very noticeable in Kiev, which has a few million of labor migrants who don't influence local authorities, and in general we conduct a great amount of meetings. I understand today that sometimes I spend the night to just get from one city to another. Right now, today came from Riabchyn. There I came from Kramatorsk. To Kramatorsk I came from Geneva. I was not at home for 10 years. I'm very sorry before my children, but I understand that this time where the place where a country is in right now, it requires extra effort, so that the level of understanding of the problems which IDPs face now was equally understood on all levels in the regions, on the national level, on international level. Thank you very much. We have 20 minutes for questions and answers, but I can't not give the floor to our special guest with a special speech, Mr. Roman Ivashchuk, the ambassador of Canada in Ukraine.
Дуже дякую, пані, передовсім і панове.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Дуже цікава була дискусія, багато було.
It's been an interesting discussion, and we have been given a lot of facts. And
самими деклараціями ця справа не розв'яжеться.
it is clear that it should be more than just talk, no matter what kind of graphics you might display and stuff like that.
І також розумію, що це не тільки справа центру, це не тільки
And it's not just something that should be done in downtown Kiev. It is something that is happening in Saskatchewan, it is in the OTH, it's in Verkhovna district, and it's a matter of comprehensive, holistic approach at the level of the government as well as international partners. And it's good that Canada has embarked on the feministic policy of international aid, and it includes the gender analysis, and we have been trying to keep on this way. In Pokrovsky district, cherry agricultural cooperatives where mostly women are doing something, and that is building the economic basics for operations, and it helps people understand that the destiny of theirs and the destiny of their communities is in their hands. NDI, IRI, and other projects are there too, and they help build political structures. There is a Promise program, which is also holding a conference on inclusive economy, social economy featuring the gender component too. So it's good that we're talking the same language. Maybe to somebody it is still something new, like new verbiage, but what matters is that there is a particular sense behind it. And this Women's Congress might become an important impetus
для того, щоб хештеги перейшли
to make sure that hashtags
життя.
become
Я б ще
a
тільки
part
так
of real life.
додав, щоб не відбирати час від питань, що дійсно це
And just
перший
one more thing.
новочасний
This is the first modern Ukrainian Women's Congress.
Зачерпуючи досвід різних країн, Ісландії,
But if we look at the practices of other countries like Iceland, Canada, we also have to be aware of the experience of the Ukrainian women of the past century. They did attend congresses before and took an active part in politics. So I guess
з одного боку
on the one
світовий
hand,
досвід,
it is a global experience, on the other hand, it is Ukrainian domestic experience.
новонабутий гендерний аналіз політики.
The gender analysis of politics or policy might be a pathway to our shared success.
Зараз ми поступимо таким чином. Ми відпустимо пана
Let's do
віце-прем'єр-міністра
this now.
після
The
одного
Vice Prime
запитання до
Minister
нього.
will have to go. He
Двох.
will take
Добре.
on
Почнемо.
two
Там
questions
була
before
найперша рука, і потім
I've
тут
seen a
друга.
couple of hands here and there.
Я просто хочу сказати про гендерний паритет. Я є
Speaking of the
заступником
gender
Іванки по урядовому
parity,
комітеті.
I'm
Він
Ivanka's
в
deputy
2,
in the
я його
government
переніс на
committee.
2:30, і зараз я вже запізнююсь, тому я просто
So
хочу
I'm
вибачитися,
gonna have
але
to leave, and I
запитання
apologize for that.
готовий відповісти.
There's an upcoming meeting, but I can take a couple of questions.
Так.
Доброго дня, шановні. Наталія Марчук, депутатка
Natalia
Летичівської
Marchuk,
об'єднаної
I'm
територіальної
with
громади на
the Litic
Хмельниччині,
territorial
одна з
community in
найбільших,
Khmelnytskyi, one of the
44
largest of a
населених
kind,
пункти з центру
44
Летичеві.
residential settlements in Letichivo.
Геннадій, до вас запитання.
I've got a question for
Як голови
Hennadii.
постійної комісії з містобудування, земельних
As the chair of
питань
the standing
і
committee
навколишнього
on
природнього середовища.
city planning
Скажіть, будь ласка,
and
крім того, що
environment,
сьогодні на першому
the question is
українському
this.
жіночому
At
конгресі
this first
ви
Ukrainian Women's
заявили
Congress,
про існуючу
you spoke of the
аналітику
existing
відносно ефективного
research findings, which says that women can efficiently run territorial communities
проведеної і розпочатої, можна так сказати, ще децентралізації.
within the ongoing decentralization.
А де ще? На яких саме заходах вами була доведена ця аналітика?
Where else did you tell people about these findings, which show efficient practices in managing
Тобто
territorial
вами вже
communities?
задекларовано, чи то інформативно, чи документально.
So I think you have said it, so there should be some background behind it. Okay, let's take a couple more questions and I'll respond to them all.
Дякую. Любов Рогатинська з сім'ї
Любов
репресованих на 60
Рогатинська.
років була, так що я перепрошую,
I
можливо, трошки
apologize, I
більше
represent the family
активності,
of
яка
repressed
дещо
persons,
наших
and
виховних звучать. Дякуємо за те, що ви
I
приділяєте увагу
appreciate
Одесі. Будь ласка,
your
наскільки ви готові
speaking about
і
Odessa
далі
issues,
Одеській
but are you ready
Одесі, про
to
яку
keep
згадували
helping
і Брідні, і
Odessa?
Геродот, надавати увагу і освіта,
Are
і
you
у нас
still
була
gonna
прекрасна
help that city with
рекреація, і
awareness
наука.
raising
Тобто у
and
нас є вчені,
recreation
які
and
готові
science?
дати
There are
механізми
scientists
розвитку для
there
того,
which
щоб і
can offer
Україна, і світ
development
піднявся на
mechanisms
зовсім
so that the
інший
Ukraine
рівень.
and the rest of the
Наскільки ви
world
готові
would
до
go one
співпраці?
level up?
І друге,
Are you ready to
запрошуємо
collaborate?
другий світовий український
And
конгрес
at the
до нас в
second
гості, але десь ближче до
Congress,
літа.
you're welcome to come around again. That's going to be closer to summertime, I guess.
От перша жіночка піднімала руку, вибачте.
I could see
Член
the hand
громади
right here.
Мінрегіону якраз. Я хочу вам запитати такою
There's
нагодою.
a question
Член
to the
громадської ради
gentleman from
Міністерства
the Ministry
регіонального
of
розвитку.
Regions.
Так. Скажіть, будь ласка, ми знаємо, що ви звітуєте кожен місяць
We know that
за
every
11
month
індикаторами щодо
you make a
процесу
report based on the 11 indicators of
Але ми ще тоді вас
decentralization.
дуже просимо, включіть в ці індикатори
And we would like for you to include trust, awareness, and citizens' involvement in public affairs. I remember we checked with the chief of your department, Mr. Shishov, and he said
установу, яка займається
you are not the kind of
вивченням
institution
соціальних проблем.
addressing
Ми вас дуже
social
просимо
issues.
підтримати нашу
So we'd
ініціативу,
like for
тому
you
що
to
вже
support
почали
our
процес
initiative.
вивчення цих
We have
питань.
begun looking into this matter.
Я хотіла задати питання Ела Ламах, громадська
Ella Lamach,
організація «Центр
representing
демократії». Скажіть,
Center
будь
of
ласка,
Democracy
які
Development,
нормативно-правові
an
документи,
NGO.
які зараз відбуваються по реформам і по
In the
децентралізації,
existing legal
враховано
paperwork on
гендерну
decentralization and
рівність?
reforms,
Більшість
there might be a
документів,
mention of
які ви
gender
проаналізували, вони
equality. Tell me where I can
гендерно-свідомі,
find it.
гендерно-нейтральні.
Most of this paperwork
Там
is
немає
gender neutral
зараз,
or just blind.
наприклад, що
And
ви проаналізували?
I
Які
wonder,
гендерні аналізи ви
what did you
провели для того,
analyze?
щоб
What kind
далі
of gender
проводити
analysis did you
децентралізацію
complete in order to
реформ?
continue
І
with the
яким чином ви будете
decentralization and
звітувати
reforms?
перед
And how are you going to make a
комітетом
report to the committee, UN committee,
протидії всіх форм
on
дискримінації щодо
condemning all
жінок,
forms
коли
of discrimination
комітет
against
чітко
women?
рекомендує, будь ласка, врахуйте гендерну
The committee
складову при
clearly says
реформах.
that the gender
Чи є в
component
всіх
should be a part of
нормативних
reforms.
документах по
Are you sure
децентралізації
that all
реформ гендерна
decentralization
складова?
paperwork really carries that component?
І я б хотів би починати з першого.
Thank you very much for questions. It is important to attend events where we can share updates. On the 4th of December, there's going to be a forum on amalgamated communities, and the best practices component will cover the best practices involving women.
Ми можемо зробити разом по інформуванню.
That's what we can do jointly in terms of raising awareness. But apart from that, let's see what else should be there. On decentralization.gov.ua, we can make another section featuring best kinds of projects run in the communities, and they're run by women. And that's how this collaboration can be built. In 2012, when equal opportunities were getting started, there was no vision of how to do it. Nowadays, we are moving on, and we're not speaking about the number of female managers running territorial communities or the number of councilwomen, but we look at the number of projects happening in the communities and how they are supported. I will look into the projects which are held in the local communities, especially the ones that are run by best female managers. So we can do that. And that's going to be a way of replicating, or at least making those best kinds of projects visible. And that's how we're going to support successful women, female managers, and that's going to be a gender parity. Now, speaking of Odessa, it is important to realize that right now, Odessa region, Rovno, Hennadii regions have to have their own development strategy. That means key sectors to be developed, human potential that should be built in those sectors. It's a matter of vocational training, high school education, access to cultural facilities. If we want to retain people, we need to improve that sort of infrastructure. So it is important that each initiative of this kind in those regions could become a part of the strategy of regional development of that region. The government should support the strategic vision of development of a particular region or community. That's why we have the Regional Development Foundation supporting projects done in pursuance of that. And also, I'd like for us to understand the responsibility that offers extra opportunities to local self-government. If something is good, then you seem to have a lot of good projects and infrastructural improvements. But if something goes wrong, we need to realize what has happened and why. Because if we delegate powers and resources to the communities, we would like to see efficient management in those communities. So projects from Odessa, and I know that European sectoral support has addressed a few recreational projects near Belgrade-Dnestrovsky, and those are about tourism development. But that should be a part of the strategy. And it should not concern just a little community of 3,000 people. It might be something good for the entire region. It might cover different cities of the region and maybe sometimes neighboring regions, because people would be interested in that. And I will be hands down in favor of that. Now, speaking of the UN committee and avoiding discrimination, it is important for us to build collaboration, which we have with the Accessibility Committee. There is an entire committee and lots of female experts and reformists which show us how to implement the agreement with the EU and address the sorts of issues which are missing in the existing regulations. And as we speak of the indicators, it is important for us to make sure that In all of these indicators, we would consider the Human Development Index. This is how it works in the EU. It's not just the socio-economic monitoring of development of a particular region of the country. We need to see what affects the HDI, and then we can see what are the benefits there are for the investors in terms of competitiveness of the region, and we can look at other potentials. So, dear lady experts, reformists, managers, and deputies, you're welcome to pitch in. Let's cover this ground together. I'm in favor of that. Mr. Shirshov runs the new established directorate, and he will collaborate as well. So it's important for us to do it together because there is no other option. Implementing the agreement with the EU is the only way. It gives you a storyboard of what should be done. We have to make it a better deal, but there should be equal opportunities for people who come to Europe, from Europe, people who have become IDPs inside the Ukraine. There should be equal opportunities for all of them. And the key resource for this country is people. They might speak about different hazards that Ukraine might face. It can lose borders, there's military aggression, financial, economic instability. But the key threat is losing people. So HDI, Human Development Index, will allow us to retain the youth inside the country. Elections, they will lead communities. It will be done by men and women. And the future generation will see a better outlook, a better deal living in this country. I appreciate all questions. Thank you, Vice Prime Minister. We've got 10 minutes to go. So let's do that. There is 5 more minutes for questions. There's going to be 4 questions from here, from there, from everywhere, actually. But there is one question that I would like to put as a moderator, and that goes to all panelists, especially the Canadian and UK colleagues. When I joined politics, I discovered a lot of new things for myself, and so did my family. And I guess our fellow colleagues in the Ukraine also made quite some of those discoveries. So the question is this: is this happening the same way in your respective countries? Because some of these discoveries are not good. Sometimes the press is lying and that sort of thing happens. So how do you handle that injustice? Let's start with the UK, then Canada. Як з цією несправедливістю боротися? Це нічого собі питання. І я скажу так, що доволі нещодавно ми побачили певний кумулятивний ефект, коли приймається рішення з Раді розквіту. 86% втраченого прибутку або доходу – це результат тих рішень, які приймалися для того, щоб змінити практику працевлаштування або відповідні виплати, знижити для жінок. Це потім повернулося серйозним тягарем для цієї держави.
And within that category, it's lone parents, it's black and minority ethnic women, so it's women who are the lowest paid, who are most dependent on social benefits, and disabled women, and families with disabled children in them. So there is an increasing inequality in the UK, which we are struggling to address.
Sorry to interrupt. Maybe I will form in English because I don't know what was the translation. I will form in English. So basically, when you were campaigning for your political position, your competitors could do a bad PR or some like very bad stuff that and saying the words that didn't exist. How you are managing to deal with this? Because often it's very emotional and it's very, the family and your friends saying about, so what is the recipe for the people who are here, who are willing to come to politics, but afraid that they will be, bullying and etc.? Sorry.
I'm sorry, my misunderstanding. It's a major issue, an increasing issue, particularly with social media. As you know, in the UK, we had one of our MPs was actually killed, was attacked and killed on the street as a result of something which, a terrorist attack, in fact. Women MPs in particular receive much more death threats, threats of rape, threats of aggression. So it's difficult, even at a local level. There are substantial levels of threat. I think all we can do is talk about solidarity. All we can do is say we will support people. We have the support of the police who have actually begun to take action against people who have made threats. We publicise those as widely as we can. But the main thing is to make sure that our elected representatives are as safe as we can be, and then to support women to be able to withstand those assaults. But it is very difficult, and it is putting women off standing for elected office, and I don't think we can say that that's not the case.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. And I want to tell you that I was first elected in 1997, and my elected career actually grew with social media. And in the beginning, it wasn't a big issue, but that became one of the biggest issues. And if anyone is interested to go on Twitter and find not Debra Button, there are some quite cruel things on there. And, I would be lying if I didn't say that it hurts. I'm a human being, and when you read stuff about you that is very personal and attacking, you crumble, and you go off in your corner, and you pull up your pantyhose and you say, screw you. And you come back a little bit stronger every time. And through that Not Debra Button Twitter page, I used that when I went into the schools. I used that when I went in to talk to newcomers about bullying and about how to fit in Canada. And I used that page and I asked it not to be taken down because, quite frankly, it was a tool. And I used it as a positive tool. But still, it's been up for, I think, 2013 it went up. And it still ticks me off, quite frankly, that someone took it to that personal level. And one more thing I want to tell you, social media, I actually had a stalker. I know. And it got to the point where in Weyburn, Saskatchewan, a community of 12,000 people, I was watching over my shoulder to see, make sure I parked in a well-lit area if I was at a function at night, and because this guy knew where I was going, and it was actually a little more intimidating than the personal attacks.
Thank you very much for your experience. 4 запитання. Почнемо тут, потім я бачу там руку.
Доброго дня. Світлана Сулімова, радник Вінницького міського голови з питань рівних прав і можливостей жінок і чоловіків на громадських засадах. Хочу сказати про те, що
Diane, on the 20th of July, we signed the European Charter of Equality of Men and Women, local communities, and Vinnytsia City is making a plan to implement this program. We have been surprised seeing that a lot of European countries have signed that paper, but not too many countries have been able to elaborate and implement the plan on gender equality. So I'm just letting you know that we're a part of the charter now, and because of Verkhovna and Debra,
тому
4
готувалися
years
до
ago,
цього.
we were
4
ready
роки ми
for this.
працювали
We
над цим.
spent for
І
years
в цьому
doing something for
році
this.
ми отримали
And this year
перемогу.
we
Так що я
won.
от хочу вам задати питання,
Here's
а
my
може
question
ми
for you.
разом це робити для того, щоб
Maybe we could do that thing
покращити
together
наш
for the
світ,
sake of a
тому
better
що
world.
завдяки співпраці ми
Because
можемо
through
тільки зробити
collaboration,
світ на
we
краще.
can only make the
Дякую.
world a better place.
My apologies, it shows you you shouldn't rely on what you read on the internet.
Те, що в інтернеті пишуть,
I
не
looked
вірте.
up the list of signatories and
підтверджуйте.
found none from Ukraine. So my apologies, I'm very pleased that you have signed the charter. And I agree, one of the major things about it is the opportunity for working together and learning from other people's examples. There's always something you can learn. So I'm very happy to set up discussions with you.
Дякую. Там було запитання, так, будь ласка.
Доброго дня, Наталія Керкач, благодійний фонд «Слов'янське серце», депутатка Святогірської міської ради, Донецька область, виконавчий партнер управління Верховного комісара по ділам біженців з питань гендеру. І так, у мене таке запитання. По-перше, наша задача, я так не бачу, тому що ми дивимося і шукаємо, як же, щоб жінки стали успішними через
We try to help women succeed in politics. And here is the question. When I was an MP, I didn't have any background, any prior experience with that. But over the next couple of years, because of NDI and IRI and my own party, I have gained some knowledge. However, in all existing communities, when you look for active women willing to go for it, they might be afraid to do it because they don't have enough knowledge. And we wonder, why are you sitting on your hands not doing politics? And they say, we cannot do it. We don't know nothing about that. If we had a special program for women, which are future candidates for MPs positions and stuff like that, these women could be trained in budgeting or writing draft decisions, making a request, making an appeal. And then, I guess, we could see more women in politics. And I think we should start at the very bottom, the communities which have just been established in this country. Thanks to Roman Vashuk, there are some programs like that in place. So I think it's worthwhile to keep making with those programs. We still have the Department of Youth and Sports and Family. There is such an agency, and they've got good staff. And maybe we should work with them more closely, trying to locate those women, adolescents, women, youths, which will do that and join the politics, because typically we lack knowledge. If we gain more knowledge, women are not going to be afraid to do it.
Не запитання, а коментар.
It doesn't sound like a question,
Як
but
член
rather a
рівні
comment.
можливості, я
And
хочу сказати, я
on
за
behalf
позитивну
of the Equal
дискримінацію і
Opportunities
квоти по
Caucus, I'd
різним
like to
причинам.
say that
Однак,
I'm
як
in
людина, яка
favor of
дуже
the
багато
positive
їздить по
discrimination
громадам, я
quota.
бачу, що
And from
чоловікам
the
чоловікам
experience in
також ці
communities, I
тренінги
can see
потрібні,
that
тому
this
тут
training
не
will also
треба
be useful for
відокремлювати
men.
жінок від
So
чоловіків.
we have
Також
to cover both
люди,
of
які
them.
зараз йдуть в нові громади, в
People that
незалежності
go to the new
від полу,
communities,
потребують
irrespective of
від
the
статі,
sex, are in
потребують
need of
навчання, я з вами
that
повністю
training
погоджуюсь.
and
У нас є
instructional
одне
advice.
запитання, потім візьмемо
There is one more
останнє і
question
будемо
from here,
завершувати.
then one more, and we're done.
Звернутися до Дебра Баттон.
Here's my point for Debra Button, Ms. Bunyan, and Mr. Marchuk. In Kiev City, there is an ongoing drafting of the new concept of the Kiev City statute, and there are big discrepancies between the government and the community. Could you help us with advice in terms of the model for local self-government? The public community, civil community needs that advice. That could be a great help.
Будь ласка, хто хоче відповісти?
Anybody willing to
God save
respond?
the Queen and you go first.
Ви почнете першим, а Бог борони королеву.
That's a great question, and
Ну, це гарне
as a
запитання, і
political leader for 20 years, my answer would be that is truly something I think that remains a unique opportunity here for you in Kyiv, and nothing that I really want to stick my toes into that water and say one way or another, but we've had similar issues. And again, that's why that diversity that I spoke about is so important, to get those different voices, those different experiences around the table, so that at the end of the day, that great city is really what you want, and that best outcome is really what you're going to have. And I really appreciate our moderator today speaking very much so in support of that, because as I've said, and I will continue to say, that it does take a whole village together to do the best thing. And we're not here today, I hope, to say this is about women, because this is truly about women and men coming together for best outcomes. Thank you.
I would agree. I think the best way to do a change is to take the soundings of the most people that you can, and then reach something which is the best you can do. But actually to listen to people about what they want, what would make a difference, take advice from elsewhere. I don't feel in a position to give you specific advice other than that, but I agree very much with my colleague. It's a matter of listening and a matter of responding.
Останнє запитання, якщо є. Якщо немає, тоді на правах коментатора і людини, яка дуже багато... Я перепрошую. Давайте останнє запитання і...
Доброго дня. У мене запитання до пані Тетяни. Скажіть, будь ласка, оцей законопроект...
You spoke of the draft law 6240. It has been supported, but what's the follow-up, if any? I've heard about that a lot and read about that a lot, so what's the follow-up?
Чутно мене? Дякую за запитання. Мені теж цікаво, яка далі доля, і користуючись тим, що і тут є народні депутати, я думаю, що це питання буде актуалізовано. Ми зі свого боку, як громадська організація, докладаємо всіх зусиль для того, щоб просувати цей законопроект. Наразі він отримав позитивний висновок ГНЕУ, головного науково-експертного управління, позитивний висновок комітету з
Committee on Human Rights and National Minorities. Anti-corruption agency says it doesn't have any corruption component. Now we wait for the major committee, which is the Legal Policy Committee. Ruslan Knezevich runs the committee. They need to come up with their findings and opinion on that draft. And we keep in touch with this guy. The IDPs can see the value of their voice if they no longer remain silent. As an MP, I signed on that draft, and I can tell you that after the first reading, they passed the electoral code, and this draft was submitted as changes that should be made in the second reading, and we're going to stand out for that in the committee. But it's important to keep in touch to make sure there's going to be some media resonance there. And again, let me do the wrap-up for this panel, so that in the second Women's Congress, there might be other answers to this question. We can see that Vice Prime Minister and the government are using feminine subjects in their discourse. It might be some kind of new verbiage. It's important to make these hashtags real actions. We've got statistics and it's good. We've got data and it's up to you to make sure we have more of these data. Then we need to process and interpret these data, because right now it's not enough women involved in communities. What matters is not the quantity but quality, and I guess that should be the subject of future discussions. We can also see that in the UK, on the International Women's Day, women not only burn flowers, but also report what has been done. That's important too.
Мені здається, це мій погляд, різницю між
українськими учасниками та іноземними. І ця різниця виступу полягала, що наші шановні іноземні колежанки, вони діляться з нами власним досвідом, а наші українські колежанки ділилися емоцією, яка базується на тому досвіду минулих поколінь жінок, як сказав наш шановний пан посол. І чому емоція? Тому що
треба більше спілкуватися на цю тематику, на такому високому рівні. Також дуже важливе питання солідарності у підтримці жінок, тому що дійсно дуже важко жінкам йти в політику, є дуже велика кількість проблем і питання реакції соціальних мереж, питання реакції преси, питання реакції ваших конкурентів, воно є болючим, дуже неприємним. Про це треба також спілкуватися, можливо, про етичні стандарти слідів. Я не буду дуже багато чого казати, мені приємно також від фактивних депутаток та членів Донеччини з Луганщини. Це дуже важливо, щоб в нас регіони, які зараз у війні, можливо, мир може принести, в тому числі і це жіночі лідерство. І наостанок, я, відверто кажучи, з цього початку, я хочу закінчити. Я дуже хвилювався, готуючи до цього заходу. Я хочу сказати чоловікам, не бійтесь відповідальності, не бійтесь спілкуватися з жінками, не мати до жіночого лідерства. Чого страшного тут нема,
There is nothing wrong in doing that. It's all right. And yesterday, I attended other conferences like energy sector conferences. You get the longest line if they sell meat. Yesterday they offered some cakes, and this time it was broccoli. So that allows you to take a big coffee break. It's coming right up, and I'll see you around to the next panel.
Дякуємо учасникам за цікаву дискусію, а також Олексію Riabchyn за модерування. Шановні гості, просимо вас залишатися на своїх місцях, адже за кілька хвилин ми розпочинаємо наступну дискусію. Пані та панове, зараз, на жаль, скасовується кава-пауза. Ми просимо залишати вас на місцях, адже за кілька хвилин ми розпочинаємо наступну дискусію. Шановні гості, ми продовжуємо за 5 хвилин.